Hey guys, I'm Andrew Henderson, Nomad Capitalist, nomadcapitalist.com, and the author of this book, Nomad Capitalist, on Amazon. And got an interesting WhatsApp message from an acquaintance of mine. I hadn't talked to him in a little while. I had met him once, I think, at a California pizza kitchen in Mexico City. Whenever you go to Mexico City, I always do recommend the pizza. But interesting message from this guy who has a company in one of the traditional offshore jurisdictions, one of the islands, one of the places where it's zero tax, zero filings, zero requirements, zero audit, zero anything. Just pay us $100 and we'll leave you alone. And he sent me a message. He said, hey, I have a blue chip bank that I won't name here, but it's a blue chip bank in a blue chip country, and it's one that you would think, hey, if you have this country in a tiny little island that is kind of under scrutiny, if you can get a bank account at this bank to do your business, you're golden. And for a while he was. And he messaged me and he said, hey Andrew, this bank just closed my account. Have you heard about that? And I told him, absolutely, I have. What's been interesting in the last couple months is I've had a lot of dinners with folks. I've run into people who are in this business, who I've worked with, vendors of ours, people I know through the grapevine. And one of the things that I've heard a lot about is that a lot of banks are going through this process of clearing accounts that don't really meet their criteria off of their account register. Banks are closing accounts. Just had a dinner last week with some guys who were saying Andorra, Latvia, Malta, even Bulgaria to a certain extent, they're closing all these non-resident company bank accounts. It's becoming very difficult for these offshore companies to have bank accounts. Now, Latvia basically did that for offshore companies a couple of years ago. They would still take a few of the jurisdictions. Now I think they're pretty much done. Most of the European Union, I mean, if you don't really fit into their criteria, if you're running an offshore business, they don't really want to deal with you anymore by and large. Are there exceptions? Of course there are. But, I mean, the biggest thing that a lot of people do is they're out traveling around the world looking for banks that will take their offshore company. And so there's two things that came to my mind that I wanted to share with you. Number one, where you bank matters. But number two, where your company is matters. And what I always tell people is, this is a puzzle. What everyone else in the industry does is they say, here, buy this company. Here's the benefits of this shiny object. It's a Panama company, and it's all these great things. And that's what they sell you. And then you buy that, and then you go to the next guy, and then you try and get a bank account. And then you get obsessed with all the shiny benefits of that. And nobody ever really focuses too much on how this stuff works together. Nobody looks at the risk factors. Nobody looks at the trends of, hey, is this bank account going to be open in a year? Now, nobody can predict all of the trends. But there are a couple things that I think are important. One is, if you're opening a company in one of these tiny islands, some islands are better than others. Some are just atrocious, but they're all becoming more and more difficult. You need to have a plan. And so what people do is they just open these companies on a lark because it seems easy. Their friend told them to do it, whatever. And then they realize, oh, yeah, I can't get a bank account. Sure as heck can't get a merchant account. And had somebody about a year ago who had spent 9 months after opening his offshore company, was still paying 50% tax where he was from because he couldn't figure out how to set the infrastructure up to make this company actually collect money. And so it cost him over $250,000 in that case, if I recall correctly. And perhaps still counting. So I think that looking at perhaps more hybrid structures, onshore, offshore structures, there's a number of different possibilities there depending on where you're from. That's going to be something that's going to become more and more important, is having access to developed world blue chip banking in a way that you have greater security. But I think that the bigger thing here is the confidence gap. And again, sometimes I just have to come on and just call out some of the fakakta strategies that people are employing. And if you've been employing one of these things where you just buy a shiny object and then stack the next shiny object on top of that, and then stack the next shiny object on top of that, you don't have a plan. You have a collection of shiny objects. So this guy set up a company because, again, somebody told him that this island was the best place to set up a company. And so you're going to continue to see this kind of de-risking from banks. If you have one of these island companies, I think there's probably going to be some kind of structural changes you're going to need to make. Are there banks you can use? Certainly. And there is a strategy where, hey, If you have this island company, maybe your bank for the island company can be lesser if you're moving money through different structures. It's really hard to give blanket advice because everyone's structure is different. Your structure is going to be dependent on where are your employees, if you have any employees. What are you selling? Where are you selling it? Where are the services being performed? What kind of product is it? What industry are you in could be a differentiating factor. So it's hard to really give anyone blanket advice, but what I can tell you very simply is this. It's getting harder to get a bank account for corporations. It may be nearly impossible for certain offshore corporations. Certainly if you don't have experience in this. I made a video a couple months ago where I talked about my experiment setting up a cheap offshore company with one of these cheap outfits on the internet. Actually, I ended up doing a second offshore company through the same outfit just to kind of see how it would go. That was 4 months ago, and I still don't have my documents for that company. And they've all but disappeared at this point. So I think that, as I've been saying for a long time, and as others have been saying for a long time, the days of this old system where you just kind of say, hey, screw you, I'm paying no tax, I'm going to do everything super easy, those days are over. Now, is it still possible to pay zero tax? It may be. For many people it is. For some people it may be more beneficial for lifestyle or other reasons to pay some tax, a little bit of tax. Not 50%, but 5, 8. But I definitely think that going forward, people are going to need plans for where's my company, where's that company banking, how's that company collecting money, particularly if I'm accepting credit cards, PayPal, checks, whatever. How is that money coming back to me as a person in a separate way from my corporate entity? Where's the corporation doing business, including any places where we have people working for us or doing services or having offices? Where am I going to be based? There are a lot of factors involved. And so I want to stick to the main point, which is banks are closing offshore company accounts and people are going to be caught off guard. And if you want to avoid that, then you need a strategy to understand not only what's working now, but what the trends are. What do the tea leaves say? And which kind of structures are all but dead at this point. And I think that planning in advance, planning extra layers of protection to make sure that you're not that guy who gets stuck without a bank account and has to keep paying $250,000 in taxes that a little bit of proper planning would have solved, that's going to be more important than ever. Because if you have a company but you can't collect money, you don't really have much of anything at all. And so I think that's what a lot of people are starting to see now. And if you're just getting into this offshore game, it's very important that you take that into account. If you're already in the offshore game and you have a company, it's probably worth reviewing your current structure to see what improvements could be made and how that could work better. If you want to find out more about how to go where you're treated best, as we say, we talked about those 5 words in the book, Go Where You're Treated Best. And you want to learn more how to reduce your taxes and increase your freedom, you can go to our website, nomadcapitalist.com. We've got a lot more resources, articles, videos on that topic there. And before you leave this video, definitely subscribe to our channel on YouTube because we've got a lot of great free resources on how to become a global citizen right here on YouTube as well.